Hi, welcome to Health and Wellness in Bayonne show. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Acanfora. Thanks for joining us today. Today I have with me Dr. Noah DeCoya. Dr. Noah, how are you?
Great, Dr. Mike. Thanks for inviting me back to the show
You
again.
are Buck Henry, my friend. You're here. You're the most interesting man in the world.
Thank you so much.
So today we're going to talk about, we're usually talking about health and wellness, and today we actually have a huge project that we're going to talk about that has been evolving, I would say, over the last 9-10 months or so.
Yeah, let's get right into it.
Yeah.
It's called the Pain Relief Project.
Yep.
And here's a stat that I think we could bring up right off the bat to position the rest of the talk is that the United States makes up 4.6% of the entire population of the entire world.
Yep.
Yet we use, as a society, 80 to 90% of all the pain-related drugs like oxycodone and Vicodin. And that's a pretty scary statistic.
It is frightening.
It's a statistic that fuels this whole drug culture that we have in our society today.
Absolutely. And you or I don't take any medication. So we're talking that there's people taking even more because folks like us really eschew that line of thinking.
Right. So putting that statistic into play, you and I and another partner, a chiropractor in Canada, Dr. Wanda Lee McPhee, contacted a world-renowned marketer, and we started talking to him, and we asked him what kind of topic can we come up that'll catch the audience and that can make a difference revolving around this problem of pain relief. Mm-hmm. And we came up with the Pain Relief Project, natural solutions that actually work.
Brilliant. So that gentleman really helped us to solidify our thinking as to what we could do for our community, and our community just got dramatically larger in the last 9 months. And he came up with, which we bantered back and forth about, that the Pain Relief Project, natural solutions that actually work.
So what we did was we used all the relationship capital that we've had and developed over the 14 years that I've been in practice and the 18 years that you've been in practice, mm-hmm. and the 15 or so years that Dr. Wanda Lee's been in practice, and we started contacting all the people we knew that made a huge difference in people's lives in the health and wellness realm. Some are chiropractors like you and I who mm-hmm. work in the trenches every other day, and some are the biggest names in health, natural health and wellness, like people in the paleo realm and mm-hmm. up-and-coming authors and people who own some of the largest trafficked health sites in the entire web.
Sure.
People like that.
So why, again, let's dial in on this a little bit. Let's talk about some of these authors. Let's talk about some of these speakers, because there's names that our audience is going to see that they instantly recognize, and for good reason.
Okay, so if it's called the Pain Relief Project, and when we look at pain and stress, we could separate that into emotional pain and stress, chemical pain and stress, and physical pain and stress. Mm-hmm. And we've gotten people that slot into those three realms.
Sure.
So the first person that comes to mind, and maybe one of the bigger names, is Rob Wolf. Mm-hmm. I like to think of Rob Wolf as the Obi-Wan Kenobi of the paleo world.
Sure.
He's one of the biggest names. He saved his own life from a life of ulcerative colitis.
Yes.
Wrote a book called The Paleo Solution in 2010, I think it was released, and just dramatically changed people's lives. And he's one of the biggest names we've interviewed. Actually, you interviewed him a few days ago.
Absolutely. And it is amazing to me at how humble folks are when we interview them. And he has been what you and I would say is a mentor, a distance mentor to us in the podcasts that he puts out, in the material that he puts out, and it's a fascinating journey. And I've told him in our interview during our discourse was that he truly, his book helped to save my life and my wife's life as well.
100%. One of the chiropractors that I interviewed was Dr. Jeff Spencer.
Mm-hmm.
Is a chiropractor for people like Tiger Woods, U2, and Bono, the U.S. Postal Service,
Mm-hmm.
and is just a fascinating person. If anybody's interested to see some of his daily posts, just go onto Facebook, put in Jeff Spencer, and he just throws out such truth bombs and thoughts that really get you to think about what your legacy is going to be,
Sure.
what your values are, what your goals in life are. So not only is he a caretaker for the elite athletes and entertainers in the world,
Right.
but he's also a master at understanding a person's mindset and where they need to go to be the best person they can be. And he calls that the championship blueprint.
That is brilliant. And we've had him here in Bayonne to speak. And he's just a very genuine and humble guy. And his wealth of knowledge, obviously you can't pack it into an hour, but it's just remarkable that we got him to speak about this, because he really doesn't do that type of thing that much.
Another person that you interviewed, one of the podcasts we listen to on a regular basis is Sean Croxton's Underground Wellness.
Mm-hmm.
And he interviewed an up-and-coming author named Jen Sincero.
Mm-hmm.
And Jen Sincero wrote a great book called You Are a Badass.
Yep.
And we both read the book. We've suggested it to dozens and dozens of people, and she was gracious enough to be on this summit as well.
She really focused on that emotional, spiritual stress, and as it centers around financial stuff too, is what she really was able to dive deep into on our time together. And she, again, brilliant, funny, just a great interview to have on our Pain Relief Project.
One of the most wittiest people that I've ever listened to and read. Mm-hmm. Really fun read.
Absolutely. So who else did you have the opportunity to interview?
Well, just an hour and a half ago, because while we're doing this interview, we're actually still working on the project. Mm-hmm. I interviewed Dr. Kellyanne Petrucci.
Yep.
She is a chiropractor, but she focuses more on nutrition and primal ways of living.
Yep.
And she spoke a lot about anti-aging, her 5 steps to anti-aging,
yep.
how pain can increase the way you age.
Yep.
And then she laid down a lot of the things that she suggests. And she talked a lot about what to eat, what not to eat, loving yourself, connection, movement, sleep, all things, and put into a nice, really neat package. And she was a powerful speaker. She's another person who's been on all the different shows like Dr. Oz and Bethany. Last week when I was supposed to interview her, we had to cancel because she was on the doctor show. So she's a really another big name who's been in this health and wellness realm for over 20 years.
Absolutely, absolutely. Tell people about some up-and-coming folks that maybe they haven't heard of that are going to be on the health on the Pain Relief Project.
Well, someone who's not up and coming, but that somebody might not have heard of is Mike Adams.
Mike Adams.
Mike
absolutely.
Adams made millions and millions of dollars in some sort of tech company.
Mm-hmm.
And he turned that into an information network called, what is it?
It was originally called Target News, I believe, and now it's Natural News.
Natural News. And his site garners 1 million unique visits a month. So even though you might not have heard of him, that's another person to go on the internet and look up Natural News and Mike Adams, because he's a huge player in the health and wellness industry. And he's also a huge player in the information industry, where he's putting out information that's accurate and truthful and gets you to look at things in a vastly different way.
His information I have found to be the most hits when I send those things out in the morning. It is his information that generally garners the most attention from the interwebs when we send out that information. Genuine, humble, funny, great interview, great guy, and it's remarkable. He talks about a little bit about the censoring of real information, right. The censoring of health information in particular, What is the statistic about the United States in regards to health? Where are we in that realm? And
I think out of, I forget how many countries they count, but I think we're number 46 in overall health and wellness.
right,
That goes right back to what we talked about before. 4.6% of the world's population, yet we use 89% of the
Right.
drug
Right.
Same thing with health. We spend the most money in this country on health care or disease and sickness care,
yep,
and we have nothing to show for it other than a ranking of 45 other countries that are healthier than we are.
Right.
So it shows us how sick we really are as a
and
society.
and the statement that we challenge people with is, could you name 45 other countries? I mean, could you
know
actually
I
sit
can't.
there and name 45 other countries? And they are ahead of us. And some of these places people probably have never heard of. But that it is remarkable. How about our mentor? Let's talk about Pat a little bit.
Somebody that has shaped our lives in the chiropractic profession for almost 30 years has been Patrick Gentempo. He essentially brought the word wellness to the forefront, I would say, about 7-8 years ago.
Yep.
He is probably one of two people that I would put in front of any camera anywhere in the world to describe what chiropractic is and what true health is and how that's expressed through a fully functioning body. So he graciously accepted to be on the summit. He's going to be one of our top line speakers, and I'm really excited about having him on. He's going to, when people hear his message, it's going to blow their mind for sure.
Absolutely. And his partner.
Oh, for those sciencey, techie people, we have a few people on the summit that are going to get down to the nitty-gritty on science, on how the body functions, take a look at the spine, when those spinal bones move out of alignment and put pressure on the nerves, what that means, how we can test that, and how pain is only an indicator of that there's something wrong. But when we look at that pain, we can map it, adjust those causes of the pain, we get a much better, fully functioning, healthy body.
Absolutely. That's Dr. Christopher Kent.
Right,
Just a brilliant, brilliant mind. Let's talk about some of the folks that people know pretty well. So we talked about Rob Wolf already.
Another one would be Dr. Terry Walls. She has one of the most watched TED Talks in the world. Again, so if you go online and you put in Terry, Terry, Walls, Wahl, you'll get her TED Talk, and it's called Minding Your Mitochondria. But her basic story is that she's a physician, MD. She works, I believe, in the VA system, and she began developing multiple sclerosis, which became secondary progressive multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune disease that attacks the covering of your nerves. So she was so bad to the point where she worked in a recline wheelchair, meaning she sat all day and did her work. And being the brilliant mind that she is, she started doing research and started looking into supplements and basically came up with a diet that's akin to the paleo diet. She tailor-made it to her needs and came up with what's called the Walls Protocol. And within a few years, she became quote-unquote normal again, where she can drive her bike to work, where she doesn't need a wheelchair,
Right.
and she almost got rid of all her symptomatology. One of her main symptoms, other than literally being in a wheelchair, was she had debilitating pain, trigeminal neuralgic pain in her face that was excruciatingly painful, where some people actually end up killing themselves because the pain is so bad.
Right.
And she cured and reversed that through a paleo diet. And basically, to keep it simple, the Walls Protocol diet is, the first type is 9 cups of fruit and vegetables a day, along with lean meats and lots of fat. And if you do that, what she's found is it minimizes the amount of supplements you need to take because you're getting it all from food sources, which are the best sources.
Absolutely.
And she preaches it all around the world. And if you want to get a feel or a flavor for who she is, just check out her TED Talk, because she's a real big deal. And the most unique thing about her is that all of the people in the paleo world have a lot of anecdotal stories and case studies. You and I have tons of case stories
Yes.
where people have lost 50, 60, 70 pounds.
Absolutely.
But as far as I know, she's the only person doing clinical trials with this work.
Right.
And where it's being published in the biggest and the largest journals in the world.
Absolutely.
And that's the kind of people we have on this project.
Absolutely. We'd be remiss if we didn't bring up John DeMartini.
He's interesting because not many people might not recognize his name, yet he is clearly one of the biggest personalities in human development and human empowerment throughout the whole world. He was on The Secret about 8-9 years ago.
Absolutely.
He does a lot of lecturing in classes in Houston and in California. Very rarely comes up to North Jersey or Northeast.
Yep.
But in places like South Africa, he's one of the biggest names out there. He has what's called the DeMartini Institute. It's 74 to 75 different courses, ranging from ADD and ADHD to values creation. But he is truly a genius.
Yep.
He is nearly a billionaire. He is so fascinating to listen to and to interview because the way he uses words and the ways he gets you to think are unlike anybody else in the world.
Absolutely.
He's pretty much like a Tony Robbins, except that Tony Robbins is a little bit more well known in the States.
Sure.
I would say that.
Sure.
But he's fascinating. And I sincerely hope that this project gets his information out to even more people.
To even more people. And you and I have both, along with our partner Wanda Lee and her husband, we took his class out in Denver, which was just a fascinating weekend.
Yeah, it's called, his signature class is called the Breakthrough Experience. And first you get to experience who he is and how brilliant he is. And then through a series of questions, you get down to the nitty-gritty on who you are, what your values are, and what your place is in the world, and how to become a better person. And it's incredible, and it was worth every cent we paid. And,
Absolutely.
And the time we spent with him. And when you see him on this project, you'll think the same and want more of his information as well.
Absolutely. One of the names that people might not know, but is truly making huge headway into professional human development and biohacking is Dave Asprey.
Yeah, if you haven't heard his name yet, you will in short order.
Absolutely.
He's another person who made a whole bunch of money in the tech world.
Yep.
But by doing that, he was very sick. He was over 300 pounds, very ill. He had an interest in biohacking, trying to get the most out of his body and the most out of human performance. And he found out while he was doing this and blogging on it that more people wanted his information.
Right.
And he created a website called, I believe, Upgraded Self.
Yes.
He also created something called Bulletproof Coffee, which is a rage on the internet. He's got an unbelievable line of products, and he's just a fascinating individual. And like I said, if you haven't heard of him yet, you will. And if you haven't heard of Bulletproof Coffee, you will, and you sure will try it. Soon enough, in the New York area, there'll be a coffee shop that's serving Bulletproof Coffee.
Well, that was
for sure.
part of our conversation. And talking to him, I said, well, I know you're opening up one in Santa Monica or early next year. I think that the East Coast deserves a bulletproof shop as well. And he said, believe me, I'd like to get out there. I said, well, I think we can make that happen. As we like to say in Jersey, I know a guy. I got a guy.
We got a guy. We got lots of guys. But the interesting thing about a lot of these speakers that you interviewed, that I interviewed, that Wanda Lee interviewed, is that each one of them went through some sort of major crisis in their
Absolutely.
life, or illness in their life,
Yep.
or death in their life, that sparked them to become this superhuman version of who they are,
Yes.
and then was able to share it with the world, and is sharing it with the world, which makes them extremely, or even more fascinating and more real.
And let's digress just a little bit. That is the origins of chiropractic. D.D. Palmer had this thing that he invented. So talk a little bit about that, because it definitely segues into this.
Well, D.D. Palmer was a very brilliant man. He was a beekeeper in an early life. And then he started getting involved in magnetic healing.
Mm-hmm.
And he was really helping people. Then at one time, in his office building, he had his little office with magnetic healing, D.D. Palmer, and the janitor was deaf, and he was deaf for 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
And D.D. looked at him, noticed that he had a bump on his back.
Mm-hmm.
He looked, he said, that's got to be a vertebrae out of place. And if, in his terms, if I ratchet that vertebrae back into place, I think he can get his hearing back.
Mm-hmm.
Sure enough, this gentleman laid down on the table. D.D. Palmer adjusted those bones that were misplaced, and he got up, and lo and behold, he could hear. He could hear the I believe it might have been horses out on the street
Right.
at the time, because
Right.
it was in the late 1800s.
Yep.
And that's the origins of chiropractic, where it was fortuitous, it was never done before,
Mm-hmm.
never put into that context, and because he was at the right place at the right time with the right knowledge, he was able to start a profession that sparked where we are today.
Absolutely. And tell people what they might not understand. Why did we pick physical, chemical, and emotional stress? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Most people think stress or pain is just if I bang my hand and my hand swells,
Mm-hmm.
and that's pain, or a stress of getting into a car accident. But stress is loss of a loved one.
Mm-hmm.
Stress is being 100 pounds overweight.
Mm-hmm.
Stress is not having enough connection in your life. Stress and pain is not having the job you want in life or not being fulfilled.
Right.
These are all the things that we chose and why we chose the topic. What I think we should get into, Mike, is the structure of what the summit is and how we're going to present that to the people.
Absolutely. Go for it.
All right, so we have about 25 guest speakers on this summit that we've all interviewed. So the week before the Super Bowl,
Mm-hmm.
which I believe is January 19th to the 26th, the marketing begins.
Correct.
So for you out there, if on the bottom of the screen, you're going to see the Pain Relief Project. You can go right to that website, or you might see it on Facebook, or you might get an email.
Right.
And you click on that, and you can register for the summit. And what registration means is that every day for 6 days, you're going to get 4 to 5 free interviews from the people that we interviewed.
Correct.
So that's Monday. When Monday's over, Tuesday comes up, and there's going to be 4 or 5 additional free audios that you can listen to.
Absolutely.
Tuesday goes down, 4 or 5 come up. So every day you can listen to them. So if you have the time during the day, which
Yep.
is difficult, but if you had the time, you can listen to this entire summit and get
Absolutely.
all the information for free.
Mm-hmm.
But if you wanted to buy the package, if you wanted to listen to the audios, if you wanted to have them for reference, and then get all the transcripts, plus
Yep.
a lot of bonuses that the speakers are giving us,
Yep.
it's going to be a very, very cheap buy. And I believe it'll be somewhere between $47 pre-sale,
Mm-hmm.
maybe $67 to $77 during,
Right.
and then $97 after the summit.
Right.
And sometimes that comes with, it'll likely come with if you want a flash drive too, so you can carry it around.
Right.
So it's a model where you can get a ton of information for free.
Absolutely.
And if you want that information for a longer period of time or to refer back to,
Yep.
it's very, very reasonable. There is no place that you can get this kind of information for $47.
Correct.
When we went to go see Dr. DeMartini, it was several $1,000s,
Yep.
plus the ticket, plus the hotel rooms. And now you're getting it for a few cups of coffee.
Exactly. For a few cups of bulletproof coffee. Talk to me a little bit about, there was one, we just finished going to a seminar that we needed to do for our state to get our continuing ed credits. And we happened to run into somebody who we had never even thought about, but in retrospect, you just interviewed and was brilliant in what he was saying.
One of the ways that we have created lots more pain in our life, or increasing pain, is our lack of movement and our lack of our body moving properly. So we brought in, I would say, 3 people that are movement specialists
Yep.
that can look at the body and figure out what's wrong, whether it's a big toe problem
Yep.
or a fascial problem or something wrong somewhere else in your body. And those 3 people are Kelly Starrett, who is one of the more preeminent physical therapists in the entire country.
Yep.
We also brought in Esther Gokhale, who's a posture and movement specialist who's
Absolutely.
traveled the world speaking to indigenous countries.
Yep.
And then the final one, who's an up-and-coming person that you mentioned before, is Dr. Perry Nicholson,
Yep.
whose website, Stop Chasing Pain, is unbelievable. That's his tagline. But he's just incredible. When you listen to his interview, he's going to talk about how something wrong with your big toe can actually lead to problems in your neck.
Yep.
Or a problem in your knee might not really be coming from your knee, but it can be coming from the shoulder. And how the body's interconnected in such a way that if it's not moving properly, it's just not going to be healthy. One of the things he said was, we're becoming human cashews because of the internet, because of our phones, because of the computer. And that posture is just wreaking havoc on our overall health and wellness.
Absolutely. Talk us a little bit about Esther Gokhale.
Esther Gokhale is another person who had a serious trauma in her life. She has 2 daughters, and somewhere along the line, she really hurt her low back severely, where she had to have surgery, multiple herniated discs. After the surgery, the pain came back. So then she started doing research on all the different countries and indigenous tribes around the world to find out how they sat, how they stood, how they walked, how they slept. And it basically formed into what's called the Gokhale method. And it's basically how to sit, how to stand, how to walk, how to correct your posture and your spinal health in everyday moving. So it's not really doing exercise 30 minutes a day. It's how everyday postures create a healthier you and a healthier spine, healthier nervous system and circulatory system.
Absolutely. And Kelly Starrett was just, is a genius when it comes to movement and how he goes about that. Works with professional athletes, Olympians, top-level athletes, and gets them back into competition faster, better than they were before. Just a genius when it comes to that. From our estimates, we're looking at about over 4 million people will have their eyes on this summit. And this will be the largest summit that we've seen to date. So I'm thrilled that we're partners on this. It's been remarkable. If you have any questions, you could check our Facebook page at the Health and Wellness in Bayonne show, and it'll be on there. It'll be on our personal websites, and it's called the Pain Relief Project, and it is going to change the world. So Dr. Noah, thank you so much. Everybody, have a great day. Take care now. Bye.
Bye-bye.